You don't expect to see your child break in front of you. Not like that. Not quietly. Not in a way that makes you question if you ever really knew her at all. The night I realized my daughter was no longer the same person was the night I decided her husband would pay for every single second of it. I still remember the sound first. Not a scream, not a cry, just silence. That kind of silence that feels wrong the moment you step into it. Like walking into a room where something terrible has already happened. But no one has told you yet. It was late evening when I arrived at her apartment. She hadn't been answering my calls all day, which wasn't like her. My daughter, Ariba, was the kind of person who'd text back, even if she was busy. Even if it was just a heart emoji. Just enough to say, I'm okay. But that day, nothing. I knocked twice. No answer. The door wasn't locked. That was the second thing that felt wrong. When I pushed it open, the place looked normal. Too normal. The lights were on, the TV was playing some random show at low volume. A cup of tea sat untouched on the table, cold by then. And then I saw her. She was sitting on the floor, near the couch, not crying, not moving. Just sitting there, staring at nothing. Ariba, I said, stepping closer. No response. My heart started pounding, but I kept my voice steady. Beta? When I reached her and gently touched her shoulder, she flinched. Hard, like I'd hurt her. That's when I knew. Something had already been done to her. Something deep. She slowly turned her face toward me, and I had to force myself not to react. There was no visible injury, no bruises, no blood. But her eyes looked like someone had emptied the life out of them. I'm fine, Abu, she said. That was the third thing that felt wrong. Because I raised her. I know her voice. And that voice, it wasn't hers. It was controlled, measured, like she had rehearsed those words 100 times. I sat down beside her. Where's Saad? I asked. Her husband. She hesitated, just for a second, but I saw it. He's out, she replied. Out. That word stayed with me, because everything about that room felt like something had just happened. Not hours ago, not days ago. Just happened. I didn't push her that night. I didn't ask questions she clearly wasn't ready to answer. Instead, I stayed. I made her eat something. I sat there while she pretended to watch TV. And I listened, not to what she was saying, but to what she wasn't. She didn't smile once, not even out of politeness. That's when I started noticing the small things. Her hands, slightly trembling. The way she kept glancing at the door. The way she sat, tense, like she was expecting something. Or someone. Or if... Around midnight. I heard the keys before I saw him. Ariba froze. Not visibly, not in a way anyone else would notice. But I did. Her shoulders stiffened just slightly. Her breathing changed. That was enough. The door opened, and Saad walked in, like nothing was wrong. Uncle, you're here, he said, sounding almost cheerful. Too cheerful. I stood up slowly, watching him carefully. He looked normal, calm, composed, not a single sign of tension. But I've lived long enough to recognize a performance. I was in the area, I said. Thought I'd stop by. He smiled. Of course, you're always welcome. His eyes flicked toward Ariba for a split second, and in that moment, I saw it. Control. Not anger, not fear. Control. The kind of look that says be Berserkernerfer. The kind that doesn't need words. I didn't say anything then, not yet. We sat for a while. Small talk, useless conversation. He asked about my health, my work, the usual. But every now and then, I caught him watching her. Not with love, with assessment. Like he was checking if she'd say something she shouldn't. That was the moment something shifted inside me, because I realized this wasn't just a bad day. This wasn't just a fight between husband and wife. This was something else. Something calculated. I left around 1 a.m., but I didn't go home. I sat in my car for almost an hour, just thinking, replaying everything, the silence, the fear, the way she flinched, the way he looked at her, and one thought kept coming back, louder, each time. What did he do to her? The next morning, I called her again. No answer. Again. Nothing. By afternoon, I was back at her place. This time, Saad wasn't there. Ariba opened the door slowly, and for a brief second, I saw something I hadn't seen the night before. Relief. She stepped aside and let me in without a word. We sat down, silence again. But this time, it felt different. Fragile, like something was about to break. I didn't waste time. Ariba, I said quietly, What's going on? She shook her head immediately. Nothing, Abu. I told you, I'm fine. I leaned forward slightly. Don't lie to me. Her lips trembled, just a little. I'm not lying, she whispered. And that's when I did something I hadn't done since she was a child. I reached out and held her hand, gently, firmly, the way I used to when she was scared of thunderstorms. You don't have to protect anyone, I said softly. Not him, not me. Just tell me the truth. For a moment she didn't move, didn't speak, and then her fingers tightened around mine, and she broke. Not loudly, not dramatically, but in a way that was far worse. Tears started falling silently, one after another, like she had been holding them back for too long. I tried, Abu, she said, her voice cracking. I really tried. My chest tightened. Tried what? I asked. To make it work, she whispered. To be the kind of wife he wants. Something cold settled in my stomach. And what kind is that? I asked carefully. She laughed, a broken, hollow sound. Perfect, she said. Silent, obedient, invisible when he wants, and available when he needs. I felt my jaw tighten. And if you're not? I asked. She looked at me. And in her eyes, I saw the answer before she said it. He reminds me, she said quietly. How? There was a pause. A long one. The kind that stretches until you almost don't want to hear what comes next. But I needed to. Because whatever he had done, I already knew this wasn't something small. This wasn't something forgivable. She opened her mouth to speak, and then suddenly, the sound of keys at the door. Ariba's face went pale. Her grip on my hand tightened so hard it almost hurt. He's back, she whispered. And in that moment, I realized something that changed everything. My daughter wasn't just unhappy. She was afraid, and whatever she was about to tell me was something her husband would do anything to keep hidden. The door handle started to turn, and for the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Not concern, not worry, but something much darker, something colder, something that whispered, very clearly. This man is going to regret ever touching my daughter. The door clicked open. I didn't move. I didn't look away. I just sat there, still holding Ariba's trembling hand, as Saad stepped inside. For a brief second, the room felt like it had split into two worlds. In one, everything looked normal. A father visiting his daughter, a husband coming home, a quiet evening. In the other, there was fear sitting right beside me, and I could feel it in her pulse. Uncle, you're here again? Saad said, his tone light, but his eyes immediately went to our hands. He noticed. Of course he did. I let go of her slowly, deliberately. Not out of fear, but strategy. I didn't want him to think I already knew too much. Not yet. I had some time, I replied calmly. Thought I'd spend it with my daughter. He smiled again. That same polished, practiced smile. Of course, family is important. Family. The word felt almost offensive coming from him. Ariba had already pulled her hand back into her lap. Her posture shifted, shoulders slightly curved inward, voice gone. She disappeared again, right in front of me. And that was the moment everything became clear. This wasn't just emotional damage. This was conditioning. I stood up slowly. I should leave, I said. Saad nodded. No, stay. We were just about to have dinner. I have work early tomorrow. Another lie. But I needed space. I needed to think. More importantly, I needed to act without him watching. As I walked toward the door, I glanced back at Ariba, just once, and I gave her a look I hoped she understood. I'm not leaving you. Her eyes flickered, just for a second, but it was enough. I didn't sleep. I sat in my study, lights off, going over every detail, every word, every reaction. I wasn't guessing anymore. I knew. Saad wasn't just controlling. He was breaking her, piece by piece, quietly, carefully, in a way that leaves no marks anyone else can see. That's the most dangerous kind, because the world doesn't notice, and the victim starts to believe it's normal. But I wasn't the world. I was her father, and I was done watching. The next morning, I made my first move. I didn't confront him. People like Saad don't respond to confrontation. They adapt, they twist, they become the victim. No, I needed something better. I needed patience. So I called Ariba. This time, she answered. Abu? Her voice was softer. Careful. I need you to come over today, I said. There was a pause. I'll try, she replied. No, I said gently, but firmly. Not try. Come. Another pause. Longer. I'll come, she whispered. She arrived around noon, alone. The moment she stepped into the house, I saw it again, that brief flicker of relief, like she could breathe properly for the first time in days. I didn't rush her. I made tea, sat across from her, let the silence settle, not heavy this time, but safe. You can speak freely here, I said. She nodded, but she didn't start talking, so I did. I know he's hurting you, I said quietly. Her eyes filled instantly. But I need you to tell me how. She looked down at her hands. He doesn't hit me, she said quickly. Not like that. I didn't interrupt. He says things, she continued. Small things at first, about how I talk, how I dress, how I laugh too loud. Her voice started shaking. And then bigger things, that I'm not good enough, that no one else would want me, that I'm lucky he chose me. Classic, predictable, and deadly effective. He checks my phone, she said. My messages, my calls, even my social media. I felt anger rise, but I kept my face neutral. And if you argue? I asked. She shook her head. I don't anymore. Why not? She hesitated. Because the last time I did, her voice trailed off. What happened? She swallowed hard. He locked me in the bedroom, she said, for hours, took my phone, said I needed to calm down and learn respect. My hands curled into fists. But that's not the worst part, she added quietly. I leaned forward slightly. Then what is? She looked up at me, and what I saw in her eyes, it wasn't just fear, it was shame. He records me, she whispered. For a second, I didn't understand. Records you? I repeated. She nodded slowly. During arguments, when I'm upset, when I'm crying, sometimes, even when I don't know. A cold wave ran through me. And then, he plays it back, she said, mocks me, tells me how crazy I look, says if I ever try to leave, he'll show everyone. Silence filled the room, heavy, suffocating. I felt something inside me snap, but not loudly, quietly, permanently. This wasn't just abuse. This was control through humiliation, through fear, through isolation. And suddenly, everything made sense. Why she didn't speak, why she flinched, why she felt trapped. Because in her mind, leaving didn't mean freedom. It meant exposure, destruction. I took a deep breath. Ariba, I said carefully. Do you trust me? She nodded immediately. Then listen to me, I said. You're not trapped. Not anymore. Her eyes searched mine, hope and doubt fighting inside her. But you have to do exactly what I say. She hesitated. Can you do that? Another pause. Then, slowly, yes. That was the moment I stopped being just her father and became something else, something Saad would never see coming. The plan didn't start with him, it started with information. Over the next few days, I asked Ariba to observe, not react, not confront, just notice. When he recorded, where he kept his devices, how he behaved when he thought no one was watching. It wasn't easy for her, but something had changed. She wasn't alone anymore, and that alone made her stronger. Meanwhile, I started digging. Background checks, work history, financial records. People like Saad always leave a trail, and I found it. Not immediately, but enough. He had a pattern. Previous relationships that ended quietly. No accusations, no drama, just women who disappeared from his life. That told me everything. He'd done this before. He just got better at hiding it. A week later, Ariba came to me with something important. He keeps everything on a laptop, she said. And a backup drive. Locked. Password? I asked. She shook her head, but she smiled faintly. I think I can get it. That night, everything changed. She waited until he fell asleep, used his fingerprint, got in, and what she found was worse than we imagined. Videos. Dozens of them. Not just of her, others too. Different women, different apartments, same pattern, same manipulation, same control. My blood ran cold as she described it, but I didn't let it show. Did you copy them? I asked. She nodded. Good, because now, we had something he couldn't twist, something real. The next step was simple, but precise. I didn't go to the police immediately, not yet, because I wanted to make sure he had no way out, so I contacted someone I trusted, a lawyer. We built the case, quietly, carefully, every detail documented, every piece of evidence secured, and then, we waited. A week later, I invited Saad to dinner, my house, neutral ground. He accepted immediately. Confident. Of course he did. Men like him always think they're in control. That evening, everything felt normal, too normal. Dinner was served, conversations flowed. Ariba sat quietly beside him, but this time I noticed something different. She wasn't shrinking, she was watching, learning, waiting, just like me. After dinner, I stood up. Saad, I said, I need to speak with you. He smiled. Of course, uncle. We moved to my study. Closed the door. And for a moment, I just looked at him, really looked, trying to understand how someone could wear a mask so perfectly. How's work? I asked casually. He relaxed. Good. Busy. Marriage? He chuckled. You know how it is. Takes effort. Of course, I said. Especially when control is involved. His smile faltered. Just slightly. What do you mean? He asked. I didn't answer. Instead, I walked to my desk, opened a drawer, and placed a small device in front of him. A USB drive. His eyes flickered. Recognition. Fear. Just for a second. What's this? He asked, but his voice had changed. I leaned forward. You tell me. Silence. Heavy. Then I said it. I know everything. He laughed. Too quickly. I think there's been some misunderstanding. No, I interrupted calmly. There hasn't. I watched his face closely, and then I saw it. The shift. The mask slipping. Careful, he said quietly. Accusations can backfire. There it was. The real him, cold, calculated, threatening. I smiled slightly. Go ahead, I said. Try. He stared at me, trying to read me, trying to find weakness, but there wasn't any, not anymore. You've been recording her, I continued, manipulating her, isolating her, and she's not the first. His jaw tightened. You have no proof. I tapped the USB drive. Yes, I do. Silence. Longer this time. Then he leaned back, and for the first time, he looked uncertain. What do you want? He asked. Finally. The right question. I want you to disappear from her life, I said calmly, completely. No contact, no threats, no games. And if I don't, I met his eyes, then everything you've done becomes public, legal, permanent. Another silence. This one different. He was calculating, weighing options, escape routes, but there weren't any, not with what we had. You think you've won? He said quietly. I shook my head. No, I replied. I think you've lost. The divorce was finalized within months. No drama, no public scenes, just quiet endings, the way men like him prefer. But this time, it wasn't his choice. Ariba stayed with me for a while after that. Healing isn't quick, not from something like this. But slowly, she came back. Her laughter returned first, then her confidence, then her voice. And the day she argued with me over something small, I smiled, because that meant she was free. People often ask me later, why I didn't destroy him completely, why I didn't expose everything, ruin his life. I tell them this, because men like him don't fear destruction. They adapt to it. What they fear is losing control, and I took that away from him, completely. But the truth? The real truth is simpler. I didn't do it for revenge. I did it because one night, I walked into a silent room and found my daughter already broken, and I made a promise to myself in that moment that anyone who tried to destroy her would learn exactly what it feels like to lose everything they thought they controlled.